The debate is ongoing between employers and employees who are trying to decipher and decide how to move forward in this new market between remote working fully or just full-time back in the office. There's a lot of in between. There's a lot of different people who are choosing to do various different types of setups. But we came across another article in regards to the constant struggle and debate. There's a lot of organizations now that are going public saying that it's time to go back to the office. It's time to be full-time. And there's a lot of employees that are pushing back. And depending on where you land on this, some of my viewers and some of my subscribers have commented and said that they think it's time to go back to full-time work. And there's ones that are very, very against it. I myself have engaged in a lot of hybrid practices with our organization that I work for. That we've decided that there's a blend between the two that we can mix with, but the conversation still is ongoing and the debate's really out as far as what's best for companies. But that's a whole nother conversation in regards to now what we're starting to see, which we talked about in a couple of videos, how the market was going to change in the sense of organizations' ability to attract talent, especially how that next generation coming into the workforce and becoming more prevalent in the workforce, if they're going to be able to continue doing things traditionally when you have a generation that has seen and has gotten used to either a hybrid model or even just fully remote. And I think that this article shows that conversation is not going to end anytime soon. But it says here, companies requiring full-time in office are struggling to recruit new employees. Just as we suspected, it's starting to see that it's rearing its ugly head. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong. Sorry, Elon Musk, because I know Elon Musk talked about how he felt like it was wrong to do remote work. But this article is talking about how we are starting to see a slow in growth on the employment side for companies that are more resistant or more hesitant to adopt some sort of hybrid model or even not even touch it at all or just go fully remote. So it says the beginning of 2023 brought the end of some remote work policies as Disney, Starbucks, which I would imagine is their corporate side, and Activision Blizzard all said they would require employees to come into the office more frequently. Employees complained, and there was some anecdotal evidence that in-office mandates were costing those and other companies good workers who voted with their feet and went elsewhere. Now, the proof is getting stronger that a lack of flexibility can hurt in the long term. Companies with flexible work policies are growing more quickly than those that require people to be in the office full time, according to the Flex Index released July 18th, which collects office requirements on more than 4,500 companies with 30,000 locations and that employ more than 100 million people globally. Specifically, in the last year, companies, regardless of their size, that are fully flexible added jobs at more than twice the rate of companies that were full-time in the office. Now, a lot of people would say, well, what does that even matter? It doesn't matter, if companies are growing on the employee side. What matters is if companies are growing on the profitability side, on the profit margins, on customers. That's what's more important. But anyone who's been in business long enough knows it's a yin and yang relationship, that you don't want to grow your company without having the workforce to meet the demand. You don't want your company's customer base and demands on whatever it's doing to grow without having the workforce to meet the demand. If you don't have that, then you're going to find yourself in a very difficult situation, because what's going to happen is that the demand on your employment and on your staff is going to grow and get more pressured, and you'll lose a lot of good staff because of that. Staff will walk away if they don't feel like they're supported, if they feel like they're overworked and underpaid. It leads to them feeling less valued. But also, over time, you have natural transition, or you have, all these employees come and go, stuff doesn't work out, sometimes they move, blah, 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 all that stuff happens. If you don't have the workforce to meet it, to meet those changes, to meet those natural transitions, your company will be hurting really quick. So this does actually affect bottom lines in multiple ways. Now, what they're starting to see now is that it's starting to show itself in the sense of the growth rate and companies' ability to attract talent. But it says here, it seems pretty clear that the companies that are full-time in office are having a harder time attracting talent than the companies that offer some level of flexibility, says Rob Sato, CEO and co-founder of Scoop, the technology company that publishes the report. And it shows the rate of growth in the last 3 months on this graph here of companies that have fully flexible structure, hybrid, full-time in office. Even companies that offer some level of flexibility, whether it be 2 or 3 days working from home, have grown more frequently than those that require full-time in office. Among companies that have between, oh, there we go. Love it when your computer just decides to shut down on you. So it says even companies that offer some level of flexibility, whether it be 2 or 3 days working from home, have grown more quickly than those that require full-time in office. Among companies that have between 500 and 5,000 employees, for example, structured hybrid companies, i.e. that require employees to come in on some specific days but not on others, grew headcount 4.6% over the year, while fully flexible companies of that size grew 4.5%. Full-time in-office companies of that size grew only 2.1% by comparison. But there's a limit to what kind of hybrid arrangement employees seem willing to commit to. Companies that require 1 to 3 days in the office grew much faster than those that required 4 or 5, the report found. Once you start getting closer to full-time in-office requiring 4 or 5 days, I think there's a bright line starting to emerge for employees and for your ability to attract talent. So, of course, we're seeing various different models. It doesn't really matter at this point how people feel about it. It is what it is. If your ability to attract talent is going to be affected, and if the more of the workforce starts getting used to this kind of model, it doesn't. You can only do so much. It doesn't matter even if you feel like it's wrong. Even if you feel like it's not the right way to do business, if it affects your ability to attract talent, you really don't have a choice in the matter. You have to do what typically most employees are used to, and you have to be willing to meet the demands of what those employees are asking for. So, and that's what we're seeing. Even Elon Musk, who was very open about how he felt like it was wrong, still had to adjust his requirements with Twitter when he first took it over because all the staff decided not to come in. So this is where we're starting to see that it might be changing, and it might be changing permanently. But one thing they did point out in the article that I wanted to show you was further down in the article. They said, of course, allowing workers to be fully remote has its downsides. A study published earlier in July found that fully remote workers are about 10% less productive than workers who are in the office full time. Fully remote workers can have trouble motivating themselves, the research suggested, and are sometimes more distracted at meetings because they are multitasking. That said, the same research shows that hybrid work has no association with lower productivity. And so there was a slight, what they found in a report, a slight dent in productivity, but overall, overarching, there's no association with hybrid work and lower productivity. But when you're fully remote, they're saying that's what that's saying, the 10% less productive for fully remote workers. And so some companies are using that to justify pulling people back into the office. And, and other companies are not seeing that. What they say is that a lot of companies have responded to that need by having more like get-togethers and company-wide, connection days where they meet off-site somewhere. So it still feels like you're not really coming into the office, but you're still connecting with people and you're trying to respond to that need to keep people productive. But I think this is just going to further continue to be the world that we live in. Employees are obviously at some of these tech companies, employees are protesting and, saying that they don't want to be in office full time anymore. And, this is just how it's going to be. If the workforce continues to move in this direction and it makes it harder and harder to attract talent, and over time, it's really just going to take time. If companies are starting to see a dent and a ding in their productivity, or a dent and their ding in attracting new talent, or they'll see it on their bottom line, as like I said, as their needs for their business remain, if not even grow, but there's no workforce to meet those needs. All these factors are going to play a role in how this work policy is continued overall. Now, not every company can do that. Not every work situation allows for remote work, and so it's really just dependent on what your organization is. The organization that I work with right now, the organization that I am continuing to work at, is a very hybrid model. We have days where we're all in the office together. It's required. We know those are meeting days, and there's days where it's just come and go as you please, and there's days where it's like, hey, we all got to come in and do a project. So it works very well, and it allows for a very flexible schedule. So I see it working. We haven't seen a dent in our productivity. In fact, we've seen an increase in our productivity, to be honest with you. And we've also seen an increase in our staff wanting to engage and take on work that doesn't really fall in within their parameters, what they were hired for, but they enjoy working there. They feel the team environment, they feel respected, and they want to jump in and do the work, especially when most of that work can be done from home. So we've seen it differently. We're a very small company. Like I think I've said before, we're about 7 to 10 staff members at give or take at a time. And so I don't know how it scales with larger companies. It may be different, but this is what we're kind of seeing in the marketplace now. The growth is hitting there. And if that continues in that trend, what'll happen from the lack of growth will result in a hit against their bottom line if it continues on that trend. It's a yin-yang relationship. You need both. You need a strong staff base, and you need growth in your company on the customer side. And that's just kind of what it is. But I'm curious, what do you guys think in the comment section below? Am I wrong? Am I seeing this wrong? Do you think that there's another way to be seeing this? Do you think that it's not going to affect the bottom line? Do you still think it's a trend? Is there other research that I'm not seeing? I'd be curious to see if anyone else has come across anything that would beg to differ and lead to something different. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and I will catch you guys in the next one.